All right. Okay. Welcome back to another episode with Wellness with Mo. Hi, my name is Mo, and today I have an inspiring, best-selling author. She's she's talking with us all the way from the States. From where? Lolita, Florida. Is that correct?
I'm from Houston, so I live in
Houston.
Texas.
Okay, Texas. Sorry. So from Texas, and she's an amazing individual. She's a four-time best-selling author, and we're gonna have a lot of fun with her because she's such a interesting and inspiring person. So um, let's start it with a very basic question. I want to know your journey from when you started to where you've become. I mean, I really I enjoy people's journey, and I get really inspired and think that I can do the same like you. So tell me, how was your journey? How did you become a stress management coach, I think, and the best-selling author?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me for to your podcast. That's an honor. And thank you for those who are listening in. So I'm originally from Lithuania, and I came to the United States 23 years ago. It feels like a very long time. And I came because I was thinking I want my American dream. And when I
Okay.
came from Lithuania, I grew up in Soviet Union, and then we became independent in Lithuania. So when I was leaving, we were not in such a strong economy, let's say, that I would wanted to live in. So I thought, okay, I will go to the land of dreams, and if I work hard, I will achieve it. And
Yes.
I'm very hardworking person. I'm like, if I have a
Yeah.
goal, I'm gonna achieve it. And you know how they
Uh-huh.
always say, just work
Yeah.
at it, you'll get there. So when I
Yes.
came to
Exactly.
US, I worked very hard, and I was working in the companies, and I what I did, I was like, okay, if I want to get more money, I have to get more responsibilities. That's mean getting more projects, and I wanted to prove to my supervisors and my coworkers that I was worthy. Like I want, because especially if you come from another country, like an immigrant, you're starting from zero. You're like, okay, I'm gonna work hard, and basically what happened, I was managing my time badly because I was just working, working, working. It will be like 50 hours weeks. I was working overtime. I get to the point of a burnout because I had no time to exercise. Like the only exercise I would get in the middle of the day is just going to use a bathroom or like eating. I mean, what was my nutrition? Not nutritious, like a pizza and donuts, whatever I can get, or some frozen lunch. And because
Okay.
I wanted to make money, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make money. I'm gonna do this, and that adds up because sure, I was making more money, and I was getting more responsibilities, all of that, but it really impacted my health so much that I just became physically sick in my 30s. It
Mm.
totally messed up my hormones, and women who listening to this podcast know how much hormones means to the human body. And I just ended up in the
Exactly.
emergency room, and I
Okay.
was like, this is not the way to do it. And I had some, like friends saying, "Oh, just go to a doctor. They give you a pill, you'll be fine." And I'm like, I don't need it. There's no pill for burnout.
Mm.
I'm not like depressed or something. I'm just in my 30s. I was thinking, come on, I'm still young. I mean, this is not like I'm in some whatever number that. Oh, it's about time for you to get old. Like, no, I was like, I'm supposed to be healthy, and that
Mm.
I totally did it to myself. And
Mm.
that moment I realized, I'm like, okay, some things need to change. And
Mm.
when you think about it, stress is such a thing that is just a part of life. We
Mm.
look at stress as, oh, this is a bad thing. It's like, yes, if it is used the wrong way. But when you think about it, the grass, when you walk somewhere on the sidewalk and
Mm.
you see there is a grass that's grown through the concrete, I bet that grass was stressing to come out to the sun, right?
Exactly.
But it
Exactly.
did. So
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, well, should be some natural ways how we can manage stress, and that was the time when I turned to meditation and writing diaries and yoga and health, nutrition and sleeping and all of those things. And
Yeah.
I became so passionate about that that I was like, I was giving advices to my friends. I'm like, oh, you should do this. That worked for me. And then I
Mm.
was at some party and some lady said, hey, you know what? I think you should be a coach. And I'm like, never thought about that. So yeah, I didn't wake up one day and said, you know what? That'd be very nice to be a stress management coach. No, it didn't happen to me. It really
Okay.
arrived to me of thinking, and I became a coach, and I'm so eager to teach others how to, manage their stress out of passion or to just spread the news. And I say stress management shouldn't be stressful, because if you're going to start thinking about, oh, that's just another thing for you to do, that's going to be very stressful. But in
Yes.
addition, one I want to say, at some point, I also realized that I felt to me like I was not really at the bottom of things, even
Mm.
though there's so many great tools, like like I just already mentioned. And
Mm.
there was one day I was reading a business book, actually, how to do business, because I was already a coach.
Mm.
And the author of the book said that she grew up in a dysfunctional family. Her dad was alcoholic. And
Mm.
she mentioned the book that was specifically written for adult children of alcoholics, and that was me. And then I finally realized that it is very important how we grow up. And
Mm.
somebody can say, well, I didn't grow up with anybody in the family being an addict. I have a perfect childhood. But I think what I'm referring to here is, overall, I think we all have traumas.
Yes.
Some of us have less, some of us have more, but there is always, it's just the way of life is that sometimes we as children do not get what we want. I know, like, it's
Yeah.
just look at the kid in the supermarket throwing a tantrum. He's not getting what he wants.
Oh, yes.
And but
Yes.
but and then, so you really need to know how to deal with that.
Mm.
And then I realized that, if, let's say, there will be a work environment, let's say I will be in the meeting, something, and
Mm.
it will be full of people and something will happen, I will react differently than they do,
Mm.
because I will be super anxious and getting the situation, like very hyper vigilant about everything. I will think this is the end of the world if somebody tells me a word, if they
Mm.
disapprove of me, if they criticize me a little bit, I immediately imagine that I'm going to get fired. I would go to those extremes. And obviously
Yeah.
that impacted how I was basically stressing myself out, and I didn't realize why.
Mm.
But so
Yeah.
that the last piece of the puzzle really came to me when I realized, oh, because I come from those kind of back from that kind of background, I
Mm.
can pay attention how I react, how I stress, and then find other ways, how I can, it's kind of like using the same tools, but
Mm.
coming from the place of compassion. Because I think, so all those meditations, and there's so many tools in about stress management these days. You can, like I said, oh, you just meditate and do yoga. It's like,
Mm.
I'm sorry, if you're talking with a client and they're upset on the phone, you're not going to tell them, oh, wait. Can you hold a second? I'm going to go do my yoga now for 30 minutes, so I'll be right back. That's,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not happening.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Well.
need to know.
Well. Yeah. Yeah. And, what I really noticed. I mean, what you've been is saying is true, because um, um people think that working hard, like you said, here, even here in Egypt, means that I'm going to be successful, and that I'm showing off to my boss and showing him, hey, look at me. I'm staying late for you to be happy and for you to be satisfied, and I'm doing all that work. And the problem is that, because I mentor here in Egypt a lot of undergrads who just graduated from university and are starting a new job and so on. And I always tell them that, yeah, working after working hours is not working. Whatever concept or myth they have here in Egypt, because here in Egypt the myth is, we start work at midday, even though it's working hours from 9 to 5, but they start working from midday, 12 noon, and then they finish work at 8 p.m. and they say, "Wow, I work a lot hard, and I worked." Yeah, I know you work till 8, which is ridiculous, because you have like 3 hours you lost in socializing, drinking coffee, socializing more, WhatsApping, Facebooking, whatever they have to waste the time, and they didn't start to work. And a lot of people here in Egypt think that what I'm saying is not it's not common sense. But I tell them it has nothing to do with setting boundaries, even in work. It has to do with your physical health. It is known, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the body starts to lose its willpower at, by 5, 6 p.m. You feel that your energy starts to fade slowly, slowly, because you are starting to get to that point where you want to go to sleep early and start the next day. So there is no point to fight, the idea of I have to work hard so I impress my boss. And uh, ever since I started after COVID, I decided to take like your journey. I decided to look after myself because in the corporate world, I had the same thing for my last job. I was very depressed. I went to the hospital twice because I had heart surgery very long time ago, open heart surgery, very long time when I was born. So that was it has nothing to do with my stress. But but knowing my history, I'm always afraid that for me something will happen because I always hear and listen to very weird cases. That guy, he had a heart attack and he was only 30 and he died. Oh my God. So we're dying young now. And how about the old, the senior citizens or the old people? I mean, what did we leave them if they were able to live all that time, and we're dying young because of stress, burnout, and a lot of other diseases that are all related to how we live. So my question to you is, after what we went through in 2020 and 2021 in COVID, for me in Egypt, I haven't realized any change in, you know, mindset of applying wellness programs or reducing the stress. Or they say they have wellness programs and they hire wellness HR directors and so on and so forth. But I've been in this wellness business and this scene for the past 3 years, and I haven't seen any change. In actual fact, everything's going the opposite here in Egypt because of the economy, because of the currency, and because of people are not able to find jobs, and because of regional wars and other things that are impacting. Because we we live in a small world. I mean, everything is connected with it. If you have a war in Europe, it impacts you in Egypt. If you have a war in the Middle East, it impacts you in the States. So haven't seen anything. So can you tell me why would did that happen, or why are the companies not taking it serious?
I think any change, I believe, can be done only two ways.
Okay.
One, when it is so painful, and you can think about even your own personal things, right? Like, for example, I just said I start changing how I live,
Mm,
or it comes through pain because you cannot take it anymore, right? Like any conflict really starts from people rise up or in their own lives personally. Change happens because you cannot take it anymore,
mm,
or you get so inspired. Like, let's say you see Tony Robbins and you think, what, I want to be like this guy, and then
mm,
you push through it, right?
mm,
But any change, no matter which way it comes, it needs to come from your inner self, allowing to admit that there's some things wrong that you don't like,
mm,
or you want to be better. And then the key is to actually allowing the change.
mm,
What I mean by that, so there's so many programs here in US, of course, all like you just mentioned, all the HR, they all have wellness programs and everything, but it's like looks like a theater, like it's not real. It's a facade of like, hey, we have it, we want you to be happy. But
mm,
when you really come down to the workplace, So for example, I know I also did quite a few and still doing like lunch and learns. I go to companies and I, talk about how to manage stress in the work environment. And you can see a very big difference how things are said. Like, let's say a company has a wellness program and they preach on you need to take breaks, you need to do a right time management, you need to do all those things. But then at the same time, they totally overwork people. But
mm,
then those people pleasers, like I was, I'm going to
mm,
work those hours because I will be afraid to say no, because I am afraid they're gonna, they let me go, whatever. So
mm,
it doesn't matter what kind of workplace environment it is. And it doesn't matter, maybe somebody can just come to work and do nothing at all and say, I'm working, I'm doing this. But you asked me about the change. And the changes come from understanding that you need to be in a different place. So everyone now can ask, your listeners can ask some a question. If you will have another 100 years to live,
mm,
would you want to be doing exactly what you've been doing now?
mm,
Do you want to be the same person that you are right now? If you have another 100 years, are you want to have exactly the same relationship that you're in for another 100 years? And if the answer is like, no way, I don't want to be in this for another 100 years, this
mm,
means the change needs to happen. But then
okay,
if you grew up, let's say, with childhood trauma,
mm,
of not believing in yourself, you see,
mm,
we are group animals, right? We need to be in the herd. That's just
yes,
humankind. We
yes,
want to
yeah,
belong to other people. And it's
mm,
really, it feels like there's so many decisions made because we think
mm,
if everybody else will be jumping through the window, I better be jumping too. Because if I'm not
mm,
going to be jumping, they're going to kick me out through that window, right?
yeah,
It's just
exactly,
pure survivalism.
exactly,
So,
exactly,
so there's a lot of this fear of being rejected. And, you can have an amazing, loving family, but you also are impacted by your community.
mm,
So
mm,
the change can happen in group when there's more than one individual decides to change. But if
mm,
you have this mentality and you really believe that you are worthless,
mm,
nobody will listen to you, and you even not worthy of making that change and
mm,
honoring yourself and giving yourself that break and
mm,
telling to the project manager saying, no, I cannot handle anymore, or finishing work at 5 o'clock and going to your family,
mm,
you are not going to achieve anything. And what really stuck with me, and I listened a lot, Dr. Gabor Mate, he talks a lot about the childhood trauma and how we grew up. And listen, and I did a lot of podcasts and I have my clients, and I hear this all the time. They're like, but look, I did not grow up on an alcoholic. Nobody's in my family, not nobody's in my country drinks, you know?
yeah, I know, yeah,
And
yeah,
but it is not about the substance. It's about that how much of love and validation did you receive as a child that you will actually grow up of thinking that I can honor myself, I can
yeah.
stand in my power, me, I can make impact in my life, I can love the way I want to love, I am
Well,
allowed to express myself.
for me as a trauma, like like you said, well, my parents, my father, yeah, used to drink, of course, because he was a diplomat, and in Egypt, a diplomat has to drink because it's a social thing for
Jumping through the
for
window with everybody else.
yeah, yeah. But what I felt, and a lot of Egyptians would feel the same, that our parents or Egyptian families on the whole are very overprotective of their children, and don't do that, and don't take this, and go to that university, and do that. Very, very typical Eastern kind of family. And if you are able to say, no, I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to do the opposite what you said, then you're a rebel. And my father always used to tell me, uh, the advice I give you is free. You can take it or you can leave it. But I always tell him, but I don't want to take it. I want to really do something and see what's going to happen to you. I want you to stop protecting me. Until today, I swear to God, Lolita, till today, you know, uh, I'm a grown up. I'm a father. I have two kids, until today, they're still overprotected. I mean, that's a trauma in itself. Um, and another for me, another trauma is that I got bullied a lot because I traveled from Egypt to a different country, so I got bullied there. And when I came back and came to the system here, I got bullied here because they thought I was a foreigner. And when I went there, they think I'm a Muslim and an Arab, so I get bullied. So it's on both sides. But yeah, yeah, exactly. Trauma doesn't have to be your father or mother alcoholic. I mean, trauma can be in different areas, and people don't really know that they're traumatized. They think that A, the family loves them so much that they fear for them, and B, I believe they create people that have fear of change. Human beings are have fear of change usually because they fear to change, but it's an extra thing because I meet a lot of people here in Egypt when I tell them my story and I did this and I took that risk and I left my job and yeah, I have a family and I'm financially in debt and everything, but all that aside, but I'm following my dream. I'm following my vision. So they think that I'm quite a crazy person. So well, no, I already know where I want to be. I definitely don't want to be in the corporate world. I definitely don't want to be that slave anymore. And I definitely want to leave an impact and change. And this is what I try and do. Yes, I want to change people's ideas and minds and so on. But the worst thing I have from corporates till today is that, the question that they give you in the survey, does the company X provide work-life balance? I always hated that question in any survey that came because I kept, even before I was on this journey, I was told that there is no such thing as work-life balance. It's such a myth and such nonsense that people think there is a true balance. I mean, you go 8 hours work and I don't know, another 8 hours going out, and then the rest of the hours you're asleep. But there's no such thing, correct or not? A work-life balance. There's no such thing.
I think like any balance, no matter if it work or not, it really happens in your mind.
Mm,
But the problem is that even if we say, okay, you work 8 hours a day and the rest is yours and the weekends are yours, and if you are stressing about work, you're really taking that work home. So
yeah.
it's not like you worked only 8 hours, you work more than that. But also the work environment is it's not really providing that you're doing your work and that's it. It's especially because we spend so much time with other people. It sometimes it looks like we spend more time with the coworkers than with our own family or our
Mm,
own kids because you come back home and you barely see that child and goes to bed. So the relationships in the workplace or people that we hang out with every day, let's just say that way, are very very important. So I know I read a research was done. So overall, people who work in a place that they are in a good relationship with their coworkers are willing to stay in the worse, harder conditions and get paid less than those who would be in the work environment where are they paid more and not that much work, but the relationships with coworkers just sucks.
yeah.
Because we humans and we need to have the feeling of belonging and
Yes.
validation, which is again kind of goes to that trauma of we just want to be accepted and loved for who we are. And
Yes.
if we find a place where we feel um, validated and you feel like you're hanging out with friends rather than just somebody's looking at you and saying you didn't do the project or you're doing this bad,
Mm,
our body will respond to this very differently. So somebody can be working for 10 hours a day doing something that they love. And I'm also can extend to those people who, let's say, they have their own business, or artist or something. You know how they say, when you doing something that you love, you don't feel like you're even working. It's, or they say, oh, how can you pick a business? What should I do? It's like, okay, pick something that even you will not ever get paid, but you're still enjoying doing that, right? That's your true passion. So when you're
Right.
really working or you're doing your passion a whole day, it can be 12 hours, but you're not going to feel stressed and tired.
Mm.
Or you could be going to one meeting for 3 hours and you come back from that like totally drained. And it
Yes.
was a funny experience I had when I was still working in a corporate environment, full time, here's the job, whatever. And that was starting my coaching business. And, there's a lot of things involved with business and getting yourself out. And I don't need to explain that.
Yes.
I realized that at the end of the day, I was at work and I felt totally drained. I was like, I cannot even put one sentence in my mind. But then I
Mm.
was start thinking about, okay, this is what I'm going to do about business. I'm going to do talk to those people. I'm going to do how I'm going to coach. I'm looking forward to the person, for the weekend I'm going to coach. My energy immediately changed just like that. And then I
Yes.
realized, I'm like, oh, so I actually the energy really you generated. It's not like
Yes.
like Brendan Burchard said, the power plant does not have energy, it generates the energy. So I
Generous.
think the
Yeah.
key is it's how it's in your mindset. Are you doing what you want to do? But that also comes again. Are you allowing yourself to express yourself? Are you allowing to honor yourself? And I want to extend this, kind of circle back to the what you were saying about the work environment and all the people is
Mm.
if only all of us will allow ourselves to be ourselves,
Mm.
like
Mm.
the world will be a so much better place. But it
Yeah.
goes from generation to generation. And like when I talk about the childhood trauma, I in one of the books I contributed the chapter that's also a best-selling book. I talk about how I forgave my father.
Mm.
And so when overall you think about stress and about any conflict, you have to change the mindset about, how what they say, when you change the way you look at things, things change.
Mhm.
And the forgiveness came to me realizing that it's not like there's never anyone wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I'm gonna go hurt my kids today.
Mhm.
That can happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think only hurt people hurt others.
Mhm.
Only when somebody is dishonored, invalidated, they feel not loved, not seen, they will harm themselves and others. I think all the conflicts in the world is happening from that place because there's no way that the happy person would like to hurt others.
Exactly.
Only when there's so much suffering, then they hurt others to make them hurt. They like, look at me, I need this.
Mm.
So then when I realized also that like my father did not have a happy childhood either, although they had money and it looks like a healthy family, he didn't get
Mm.
the validation from his parents and he was suffering. So he was
Mm.
addicted to alcohol to soothe himself. It's not
Yeah.
like he didn't pay attention to me when I was a child or was yelling at me all drunk. It was
Mm.
not because he hated me. It's not because that he was like, I want to hurt her. No, because he was
Mm.
himself this 3 years old toddler who was in
Mm.
pain and he didn't know how to process those emotions.
Yes. Yes.
And that goes from generation to generation because we don't know how to address our emotions and how to deal with this. So if we can get, and a change happens with more than one person realizing like, hey, you know what, I can honor myself and it's okay to love myself. And here's another thing that is, it can get triggered easily. When I heard about self-love, I immediately went into like, no, because we used to being like, oh, you selfish, you shouldn't be
Yeah.
selfish. You should sacrifice yourself for others. But when I coach my clients, I'm like let's say you'll be a single mother with few kids, and she's like, I really want to make this happen. I want to show
Mm.
my family I can do this. My kids depend on me. And I say just simple exercise. I said, and I do this for my speaking engagements. It always works. I say, okay,
Mm.
I get a glass of water, and I say,
Mm.
how heavy this glass is. What do you think? And people,
Okay.
oh, well, I don't know. And I said, you know what? How heavy it is, depending
Mm.
how long I'm gonna hold it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's stress. If you will be putting this glass every hour, You
Mm-hmm.
can do this for years, okay? So that's the same as with stress. And so like one tip. So we have phones now. Okay, let's use for something good.
Mm-hmm.
Set an alarm, and every hour, of course, again, a disclaimer: if you're driving, operating heavy machinery, do not hurt yourself. But if let's say you're sitting somewhere comfortably, just make your phone ring every hour, and then for 1 minute, 1 minute, just close your eyes, disconnect from whatever you're doing, just
Mm-hmm.
breathe, and tell
Mm-hmm.
yourself, I'm just doing for 1 minute. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're such a controlling freak, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna fall asleep, or how is it happening? Put an alarm to give you a sign that now you can open your eyes and proceed if you really want
Yeah.
that control.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
there's a lot of times that I have my clients, they like, how immediately there is this guilt of, oh my gosh, I'm doing this for myself. So how
Mm-hmm.
do we deal with this feeling? It is, just think about it. We all live with group of people, right? We do with families and communities. And somebody can say like, oh, you have no kids, no husband, no wife, whatever, nobody cares about you. No, there's still friends. There's some family members that do care about you. So you're impacting them too.
Yes.
So if you have problem of thinking that you don't deserve to help yourself and love
Mm-hmm.
yourself and take care of yourself, just think about
Mm-hmm.
it. You cannot pour out of the empty pitch, right? So
Yeah.
in order to give to others, you need to fulfill yourself. It's kind of like that airplane. I mean, I know everybody says the same thing, like put your mask on first before you help the other one. But
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah.
It's like one thing is to laugh about it, but you really start thinking like, are you really doing that? And if you
Mm-hmm.
feel guilty, just think about it. It's not only about you. You're
Yeah.
impacting people around you. And it comes to like work environment, if
Uh-huh.
those and I deal a lot with the business owners and the
Yeah.
management of companies, and they like, well, we have this problem with this turnaround, like we have people come in, they burn out, they don't like, they
Yeah.
leave. And it's
Yeah.
like you have to provide them with opportunities that they can take care of themselves. And
Yeah.
when you get a
The problem is even, you know, we've noticed. I have a group of coaches, lovely ladies. Each one is an expert in a different area of wellness. Like nutrition, and there's the hypnosis, hypnotherapy, and I myself, I'm a mindfulness coach, and we'll have different things. And we noticed that even if the company, and this is the weird thing, even if the company provides uh, wellness programs and good opportunities, the employees don't take it. I don't know why, and they just like to complain. Yeah, the management is not doing it. Okay, yeah. So what do you want them to do? If you want them, to take the action themselves and come and knock on your door and say, please, please, please do take this, no one's going to do that. I mean, there is a responsibility for top management, a huge responsibility, and there is also a responsibility for the employee. So again, it comes back to the mindset. If someone wants to change, then he will change. He doesn't need to a push from the top management. And at the same time, top management companies here in Egypt spend millions of pounds on insurance. Medical insurance. I know it is a benefit for 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 the employees, but if you think of it logically, the money that is poured into that medical insurance can be poured into a wellness program, which would cost less than what they spend on the medical insurance. And at least we can somehow guarantee that people will not have, diabetes, will not have heart issues, will not have insomnia, will not have physical pain, will not feel depressed or anxious, or all those mixed feelings. I mean, they will be less. So it's very weird. And the interesting thing, I'm glad that you said about uh, the alarm thing, because that was my other question. Because I want my listeners to hear something new, because I've been telling them, you need to meditate, you need to breathe, you need to journal, you need to acknowledge and accept your feelings. But I want to understand from your side, are there any other methods of stress release that they can do other than these?
Well, number one thing is, as we know, we get sick because it's, the body keeps the score, right? The book is
Yeah.
really, it really shows that. Um, Getting tips and tricks how to manage your stress or participating in a wellness program, it
Mm,
is like buying a cookbook, as they say.
mm,
Just because you bought the cookbook, it doesn't mean that you will have dinner on the table. You
yeah.
still need to cook it.
Mm,
So,
good.
how does one starts cooking? By
Mm,
having a desire to cook, right?
mm, mm,
Or implement those stress management techniques. If
mm,
somebody does not believe that they
mm,
deserve to be in a better place, you cannot make someone to do it. I
mm,
like this here. I heard when I came here to America, I heard this saying. It says, "You can take the horse to the river, but you cannot
mhm.
make him drink it." And it really goes well with people that I deal, and especially the clients I coach. It is
Uh,
because if somebody does not believe that
mm,
they worthy of change, they will not do it.
mm,
Then they
mhm,
also, like we said at the beginning of this conversation, we belong to the group of people. And
mhm,
because we are afraid that we'll be excluded and hence die, we will
mhm,
continue doing exactly the same habits. So, like for
mm,
example, you can have a family who suffer from diabetes, and then
mhm,
you look at them, and the kids look exactly, obese like their parents. And
mhm.
here they can somebody say, "Oh, it's genetics." It's like, well, no,
Yeah.
how is that genetics? Because they all eating the same thing. The kids eating
Mm,
the same thing, meaning the kids are learning the same habits from their parents. So naturally, the outcome will be the same as well. So I
of
think
course.
there's a lot of suffering of, for example, let's say somebody grew up in the environment that they were not acknowledged or seen enough, like they felt like they were not seen. Um,
Mm,
but then guess what? When they get sick, then they
mhm.
finally seen, right? Then the family
Yeah.
takes care of them. So they can
Yeah.
learn this behavior of thinking, you know what? I'm going to be sick because when I'm
Mm,
sick, people feel pity. So
mhm.
then they use this disease, and I know this is looks so convoluted and so messed up. Like, oh my gosh, are you telling me I'm sick because of this? But I'm really not coming up with those ideas by myself. I listened to some, big people who really getting deeper into how we think. Because
Yeah.
when you think about it, all our behavior serving us somehow. So
Mhm,
the very hard question is that I ask my clients, and I will invite anyone listening now to your podcast is, if you are in this situation right now, and that's like stress management, right? Like you in this situation, and it
mhm,
helps you, and you think like, okay, this is stressful. I don't know what to do. I'm just going through this pain and everything. Very hard question to ask yourself is, how is that serving you?
yeah.
It's a very
Exactly.
tough question. And
Mm,
you're immediately going to be like, what do you mean? It is not
mm,
serving me. What do you mean it's serving me? Like, look at me. Like, um,
mm,
let's say a woman is obese and she's like, I am sick and look at me. And I tried any
mm,
diet and nothing works. And what do you mean I brought this onto myself? How dare you?
mhm,
But if you really start asking, like, how do you think why it's serving you? And
mm,
then the more with the conversation you can find out that that woman was maybe abused when she was a child, or she feels like she's unworthy of love, so she's
mm.
going to do everything that would repel the men. Let's just say, just an example, okay?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he will keep this as a protection. And I heard multiple cases of, let's say, somebody who was sexually abused when they were children. They
Mm,
grow up of not taking care of their own body because they feel like the body was the part that put them in danger,
mhm,
or they
mm,
also feel guilt, so then they will do something against themselves and to hurt themselves because
mhm.
they feel ashamed. So
Yeah.
it goes, of course, very, very, very deep. So
Mm,
when you are in this situation, you always ask yourself, how is that serving you? And for example, I can give an example for myself. When I was working in the environment that I was pushing myself and I was working so hard and I really
mhm,
burned out, right? Made
mhm,
myself sick, really. And then I asked myself the same question. Of course, later, years later, I was like, well, okay, how that situation served me at the moment?
mm,
Because when I grew up in an environment of not believing myself that I'm worthy, and it's like, okay, if I, and that's like Dr. Gabor Mate said, if you did not feel loved,
yeah,
then you made yourself useful. So
mm,
that's mean the group of people will not discard you because you're
mm,
useful, right? So they're not gonna keep you around because you loved. Like,
mm,
okay, I figured out you don't love me. Oh, okay. How is the
mm,
other way that they will not discard me? Oh, I can be useful. So then
mm,
when you're an adult, you become workaholic and you keep on pushing yourself for better. And a lot of people who are perfectionists, they do
mm,
not believe is that whatever they did already it's enough, so they keep on pushing themselves to be better and better and better, but it's like a running to reach the horizon. It never
yeah,
ends. And
exactly,
so
exactly.
there's a lot of why is this serving you. You need to always ask yourself what is the real problem there, and then when
Yeah,
you see what it is, what you need to heal, how you need to honor yourself, how you need to love and respect yourself and give yourself space to be who you are, then the change can start happening and actually you can see results.
yeah, yeah. I agree with you totally. Um, one of the first few things that I usually tell people is that in when we coach about mindfulness and how to be present in the moment and how to accept our our emotions and everything. So I always tell them that the first thing is you need to not judge yourself. We are very harsh critics about ourselves. We're harsher than even criticizing others. And sometimes, to be honest, sometimes I do that. And when I catch myself doing that, I say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing that. I'm doing that thing that I shouldn't be doing, and I'm preaching it to other people." Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I'm okay. I'm okay. I love myself. I'm fine because I mean we're only human beings. We're not angels. So we're always we can always make mistakes. Um, and part of that problem of workaholics and on perfectionists is that they don't believe in failure. The word failure for them is means weakness, and I always try and tell them failure is the best teacher in life, because if you learn the lessons that made you fail, you will know not to fail next time. And I always tell them all the successful people around this world, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Bill Gates, the the Will Smiths, the most talented celebrities in the world, all of them, they all failed. I mean, no one was born a success, because if we were born a success, then where's the hard work that went with it? I mean, and that is that is the problem I face with a lot of younger generations. The generations that are in the age of my son, who's is in his teens, and maybe the older ones. They always want gratification, instant gratification. They always want to make quick money. They don't want to stress out. I mean, they want to always avoid it, and you can't do that. I mean, part of living is being stressed, but stressed in a moderate sense that motivates you and makes you push yourself further and further without going to that area of red, which is the burnout. And the problem is that people here, and maybe in the States and maybe around the world, don't know when to stop. I mean, that thin line between moderate stress and burnout. It's so thin that they think that because they're working hard, they want to impress their boss, so they're going to get that promotion, and they don't really know that. Like you said, after a while, they just go boom, collapse, and they go to the ER. That's it. And would the boss do anything? Would the company do anything? Just give them a pat on the back. Oh, it's okay, no problem. And And if you can't continue they will fire you, lay you off, and get two, three people with the same price of your salary. You know, and this is how it happens in Egypt. Uh, and so people are 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 always complaining, and I always meet them. They're always complaining that they're stressed. They're always complaining that nothing's going right for them. And I always ask them one question: so, what are you going to do? All that's going to happen. What is your first step? What are you going to do? You need to look in the mirror and stop putting the blame on everyone else except yourself. So that's basically
And
it.
yeah, I like what you say. And if someone just need to ask the question, am I happy to be like that for the another 100 years? If they happy
Yeah.
to be like that, that's great. And also,
Mm,
how is that serving them? If it's serving them, and they like, yeah, that's how, there was it just reminded me, um, I was driving with my parents to Florida and a few years back, right after pandemic, and uh, it was a very beautiful, peaceful drive. We were listening to music and we're just chatting, whatever. And then there was this quiet. We were just looking, and then there was this one car just cut us off, right? And my mom immediately started complaining. She's like, "Oh, look at this car! They cut us off!" And I was listening. I'm thinking there was really no need to complain. And I said, "Why are you complaining about such a thing that does not really impact our lives at all?" And
mm.
she said, I will never forget that. She said, because there's nothing else to talk about.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, oh, okay, okay. So this is just, so then I realized I started looking at other people that in my life are complaining, and I realized, oh,
Mm,
this is just their way of just having a conversation. And if
yeah.
you hang out with some particular people groups, you can see what like a major teams are. Meaning,
Yeah.
like we are the part of the group, so we're gonna do whatever the group says, right? In order to be accepted in the group. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
okay, so is this really you complaining because you need help, or you
Mm,
asking me to help you, or is it you complaining because you just like complaining? So
yeah.
the individual need to ask themselves, am I really happy in this place? So if they're happy,
Mm.
great. We just let them complain. Because when I said, um, you cannot make the horse to drink it, it is
Yeah.
also very I understood this about my family, that when I already started being on this journey of honoring myself, loving myself, and doing meditations, and anything, like anything that has to do with self-care, I try to tell
Mm,
this to my parents, like, oh, okay, you look, you can do this, you can do this. And I realized I cannot make them do that, because
yeah.
you cannot make anyone to do anything. We're all doing it from ourselves. And even though it looks like, oh, they making me to do this, right? It is
Mm,
because of self-preservation. You allowing them to do this. Like, you're the one
mm,
who making decision, because like, especially where there is a kid and a parent
mm.
dynamic, is like, we all kids, obviously, we all had parents. We want to
Yeah. Of
honor our parents. We want to please
course.
them. We want
Of
that they
course.
will be proud of us. We're going to do
Mm,
what they tell us to do. And even though if somebody says, hey, I'm giving you advice, you can take it, you can leave it. I
mm.
always will take advice, because I want to show them that I love them. And
Yes.
so there's always need to ask yourself, from what position am I making my decisions? Do I want
Mm,
to please someone? Or
mm,
I really following my true calling? And
mm,
I learned a message that there's a lot of stress comes from taking care of others. Like, for
mm,
example, you have kids, you have parents, and especially it's super hard when somebody's, let's say, physically ill in your family.
mm, mm,
Somebody's have some illness, and you try them to tell them, look, stop eating sugar, for example, right?
mm.
And will
Yeah.
stop
Yeah.
smoking or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you see them suffering, you see them physically in
Mm,
pain, and you feel
mm.
totally helpless, because you're trying them to make them making that impact, but they're not doing
Yeah.
it the way you want to do. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that was hard for me also to understand as a coach, and as
Mm.
a just human being, realizing that we have to honor other pain too.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
have their own, let's say, soul journey, or whatever you call it.
Mm,
Even it pains us to see them
mm.
suffer. We have to honor their choice.
Of
And it's
course. Of
very, very
course.
hard to do. But when you
Yeah.
change what helped me is when I understood that I need to change a point of view about things, the way I see them.
Mm,
And when I
mm,
assigned a bigger picture, and I read a great book about how to, that stress is not so bad for you, because if you can make the point, and I can talk for hours, but I swear I'll stop soon. Um,
mm,
it's about how you see the situation. So when I
mm,
realized that, let's say if I am in a conflict with something, I feel stressful, and if I see that it's somehow like you kind of like zoom out and you see the bigger
mm.
picture, and you see
Yeah.
like, you know what, this is actually for the better. Like
Mm,
let's say somebody has a disease and maybe they will be always smoking and
mm,
not taking care of family or whatever, and then the disease strikes and they're like, oh my gosh, I have cancer, I'm gonna die. And this is the
mm,
moment when the change happens for them because they want
mm,
to, and then they say, you know
mm,
what, no, I love my family, I want to spend time with my kids, I want to live life. Their life
mm.
change because of the diagnosis, and
Yeah.
then they live, or they, whatever happens. But there's always everything, I think, in life serves bigger purpose. And if we
Mm,
understand, like, all of this is just an experience, and
mm,
we're doing the best that we can in any moment, and forgiving ourselves and others, and understanding that, you know what,
yeah.
they also doing it from the best they can.
Of
Nobody
course.
is hurting on purpose something. Only if they hurt people hurt others. This is all
Mm,
serving you somehow. You just need to
mm,
have forgiveness towards yourself
mm,
and others, and understand they
mm.
doing the best they can too. And if we can
Yes.
honor ourselves and others just to be in this unique way, and it's okay to be different, and it's
Mm,
okay to take care of yourself, because if you take care of yourself, you can take care of others. I think then
mm,
we can move towards of of a more of healing and more of love and less of stress, to
mm.
changing the mindset. And it is work, but I think it's possible.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So I wanted to ask you, uh, what is one word or one sentence that best describes you, Lolita?
Well, you see, it all depends. How do I see myself in a different situation? Because I don't think that we like one word. It's if you will ask me about one word how I can describe myself in the morning, I will say cranky. But if you will ask me what I'm doing right now, for example, in this podcast, I will say uh, happy, because that I love spreading the word, and if I inspired anyone who's still listening to us up till now, that just that just made my day. I
Yeah,
think that's the I would say, if I need to tell myself one word, I would say I think I'm flexible, because I can
flexible.
be who I want to be in any given situation, and I understand that I may be not happy of what I do sometimes, or what I feel
Okay.
sometimes. But really acknowledging and honoring who you are, and it's okay. It's
Yeah,
just because you're different in something, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just
yeah.
different, and different is good, because that's what life is, you know. I think
Mm,
that's where it starts.
that's great. That's great. So tell me one final question. What's Lolita's dream?
Well, I would love to live in peace and love, because that's I think what all of us want. So if we
Yeah.
and there will be a day that we can accept ourselves and be in really peace, and
Mm,
my dream would be having no war in the world, and because I think deep
mm,
down all of us want the same thing. We want to be
yeah,
happy, want to be
yeah,
healthy, we want to enjoy life. That's
yeah,
everybody wants the same thing.
yeah. That's that's amazing. Thank you very much, Lolita, for honoring us on the podcast. I mean, I've learned a lot from you. You're such an inspiring person and very funny person. Really, very funny person, and you're such an amazing human being. And I really wish and hope for you the best and all the happiness. And hopefully we can meet here in Egypt, or if I come to Houston, I hope so. One day I can meet you, and we can discuss more about other issues, because I believe that you're such a model and such a powerful woman. I think, I mean, all respect to you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. It was an amazing podcast. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And um because I believe that we can heal, and those who will be interested and are ready to heal themselves a little bit and help themselves with the stress management, I will give you a link for anyone who listening in right now. They can go and get my ebook. The
Okay.
last book, the stress management for adult children of alcoholics. That's on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's the best-selling book. I'll give you a link, and anyone who wants to get for free, just like an ebook, they
Yeah.
can go to that link and get my book. It
Okay.
is 25 chapters. I talk about the different things. And again, that has to do with just being in a turbulent childhood or having not, dysfunctional family. I think we have more or
Yeah.
less,
Mm.
and it has specific tools like exercises. What can you do? How you manage
Okay.
stress? Because, that's such a thing that we can talk for hours and we don't have time for this. So if anyone
Mm.
who's interested, I'll give you the link. They can click on that
Sure.
link and go grab my book.
That would be amazing. Thank you very much. And thank you for your time. Um, Thank you, everyone who's listening. And I hope you enjoyed this week's episode with Wellness with Mo. Until next week, we'll have a different guest, another inspiring story. Hopefully, it will be as interesting as today's. So, God bless you and be safe. And until next week, be mindful.